You know, there's no question that a certain level of anxiety exists in today's housing market, and it's around comparing to what happened to 2006 to 2008 with the rise up then. Hi, I'm Charlotte Volsch, real estate broker, certified probate specialist, and trust advisor. And on this channel, we teach you everything you need to know about probate and trust, including buying and selling property. Now today we're going to take a look at lending standards and the impact of those standards on the market, and more specifically the volatility of the market crashing. And because of checks and balances within the lending process, you'll see in the following graphs and also in the charts that there's no reason to panic over today's lending standards. Today, some folks are afraid the real estate market is starting to look a lot like it did in 2006, just prior to the housing crash. And one of the factors they're pointing to is the availability of mortgage money. Now, recent articles about the availability of low down payment loans and down payment assistance programs are causing a certain fear and anxiety that we're returning to the bad habits that we saw 15 years ago. Let's alleviate these concerns. Several times a year, the Mortgage Bankers Association releases an index titled the Mortgage Credit Availability Index, or the MCAI. According to their website, the MCAI provides the only standardized quantitative index that is solely focused on mortgage credit. Now, the MCAI is a summary measure which indicates the availability of mortgage credit at a point in time. Basically, the index determines how easy it is to get a mortgage. The higher the index, the more available mortgage credit becomes. Now, here's a graph of the MCAI data back to 2004 when the data first became available. So we can see the index stood at about 400 in 2004, and mortgage credit became more available as the housing market heated up. And then the index passed 850 in 2006 when the real estate market crashed, and so did the MCIA. Down below 100 as mortgage money became almost impossible to secure. Now, thankfully, lending standards have eased somewhat since, and the index, however, is still below 150, which is about a sixth of what it was in 2006. Now, why did the index rage out of control during the housing bubble? Well, the main reason was the availability of loans with extremely weak lending standards. To keep up with demand in 2006, many mortgage lenders offered loans that put little emphasis on the eligibility of the borrower. Lenders were approving loans without always going through a verification process to confirm if the borrower would likely be able to repay the loan. Now, some of these loans offered attractive low interest rates that increased over time. And the loans were popular because they could be obtained quickly and without the borrower having to provide documentation right up front, which is generally what is required. However, as the rates increased, borrowers struggled to pay their mortgages, and today lending standards are much tighter. As Investopedia explains, the risky loans given at that time are extremely rare today, primarily because lending standards have drastically improved. In the aftermath of the crisis, the U.S. government issued new regulations to improve standards of lending practices across the credit market. And this included tightening those requirements for granting loans. Now, an example of the relaxed lending standards leading up to the housing crash is the Fico credit score associated with a loan. Now, what's a FICO score? The website MyFICO explains that it's a credit score that tells lenders about your creditworthiness, how likely you are to pay a loan back based on your credit history. It's calculated using the information in your credit reports. FICO scores are the standard for credit scores, and they're used by 90% of top lenders. Now, during the housing boom, Many mortgages were written for borrowers with a FICO score under 620. Experience reveals that in today's market, lenders are more cautious about lower credit scores. Statistically speaking, 28% of consumers with credit scores in the fair range are likely to become seriously delinquent in the future. And some lenders dislike those odds, and they choose not to work with individuals whose FICO scores fall within that range. There's definitely still some of those loan programs that allow a 620 score. However, lending institutions overall are much more attentive about measuring risk when approving loans. Now, according to Ellie Mae's latest Origination Insight report, the average FICO score on all loans originated in February of this past year was 753. This graph shows the billions of dollars in mortgage money given annually to borrowers with a credit score under 620. So there's no reason to panic over today's lending standards. 2006, mortgage entities originated $376 billion in loans for purchasers with a score under 620. Last year, that number was only $74 billion. So in a nutshell, in 2006, lending standards were much more relaxed with little evaluation done to measure a borrower's potential to repay. Today, standards are tighter. The risk is reduced for both the lender and the borrower. And these are two very different housing markets, with today's market being more vigilant on creditworthiness, removing the panic of out-of-control dollar distribution. Now, as you begin your spring cleaning, check in for your personal evaluation to capture your highest equity if you're looking to sell, or to secure your dream home in the very highly competitive buying race. See you next time.